Hey folks, welcome back. So today we have a video comparing, of course, as you read in the title, the SRC MP5, comparing that to the WE MP5. How do these two guns stack up to each other? And you know, how would you choose if you were only going to pick one of these? Both of these are fairly expensive actually, and it's going to be difficult to buy both of them. So how are you going to pick them? My answer is that, well, it depends on what you're looking for. Because I think, you know, for the most part, both these guns are actually pretty quality in terms of how they perform, in terms of, you know, how they function. But it's really only a matter of the style you like, how you use them, and basically, really those two, how do you like them? Because they're both fairly reliable for the most part. But again, it's a little bit hard to tell at the moment. But I'm going to go through the details side by side and compare them, and then leave it for you folks or towards the end to really make a decision for yourself to see which one is the one you're going to want to go with. Alright, so let's get started. This is right here the full stock MP5 CO2 version by SRC. Okay, now this originally came with a collapsible stock right here that I removed and put on the full stock. Now, so the two difference, when I'm comparing the two guns, they will look different because, you know, one's full stock, one's collapsible. But don't let that fool you. It's we'll go into the details. So, the first thing here is you'll notice that I want to point out that let's start with the trigger pack group here. So on the SRC version right here, this is called the SES trigger pack group right here. It's not ambidextrous, just like in the real model, right? So you got, I'm holding it with my left hand right now, but so I would have to adjust kind of in more of an uncomfortable fashion with my thumb to adjust the select fire. You got safe, single, and full auto right there. Those are your three functions. If you notice this again, this is not ambidextrous. So right here, you'll notice that if you were to hold it with your right hand, if you're holding the right hand, you won't be able to access this, or you will be more easily accessible right here. I probably said that kind of confusingly, huh? But whatever. But anyway, again, it is not ambidextrous. But again, it's true to the real steel for those with this SEF trigger pack group right here. You'll also notice that the design patterning right here is a lot different from most MP5s, or the more recent MP5s that you'll notice. But again, that's true to the original form right there. Again, let's go back though to the WE MP5 right here. This is the what they call the ambidextrous safety pack group here. You'll notice though that again it's different. They did not use letterings; they used the pictograms right in this case. And not only that, you also have a different style. Just slightly different form of a selector switch, but also the big addition here is the burst group select mode, in addition to the traditional semi-auto and the full automatic, and of course the safety. I will say that the clicking or the selective fire on the WE is a lot stiffer, which is good, but it doesn't click as hard if you or as distinctly as the SRC. So it does click as so, but if you move it kind of slowly, it's not as dramatic for a minute. Whereas the SRC version right here, you'll notice that they click, even if you move them slowly, you'll hear a distinctive click in each spot. But this isn't as, it's a more of a loose turn. There's not as much resistance. So, you know, depending on what you're looking for. As far as the grip and this texturing of this, you notice that, and I hope you folks can see on the camera right there, but again, this is more designed for right-handed shooters. So if you hold it right here, the groove is perfectly designed for your thumb, and on the left side right here, again, it's a little bit different. It's not symmetrical. It's more designed for your index finger right there. So you'll also notice that the stippling and the texturing of the plastic or the trigger pack right here is a lot smoother and finer compared to the WE. Again, I'm not saying one is better or the other, it's just different. So this one has a more smooth texture, and that's compared to this one right here. This one has this is a different trigger pack, obviously. It has both, it's ambidextrous, so both sides are going to be identical in terms of the, there's no grooves or anything like that for your fingers and thumbs. But the texturing here on the plastic here is a lot more aggressive, which again, it's not uncomfortable or anything like that, but it is, I think it has a better grip angle compared to the SRC version. But again, it's nice because it's ambidextrous, so you can have it on both sides and easily cycle through the different firing modes. You'll also notice again that this is smoother and it doesn't have the pattern like you saw in the SRC version. But really, it comes down to what do you like better. Do you like the old school fashion trigger pack, or do you like the newer one that has the pictogram with a flat surface? It's up to you. And do you really want the burst fire mode, or do you want just auto and semi in addition to the safe fire mode? So that's the comparison right there, going into between these two models right here. Now let's move on to the stocks. In this case right here, this is the collapsible stock right here. I'm pretty sure this is called the A5 or A3 stock because it's the collapsible one, so it's, as long as it's an odd number. This right here, the box will say it's A3, but this one also says A3 in the box too. You'll notice here that it has the full stock. So I'll just change that to make it more like we're comparing apples to apples. So if you pop this pin out right here, pull it out on the side. This is, by the way, an AEG stock by the same company, SRC. So fortunately, they kind of just reuse the same parts, so it works very nicely. It's a very tight fit, which is great because it doesn't wobble. And that's why I really like the full stock on this compared to the, say, the collapsible stocks. But it's a little bit cheap because you'll notice I have to put a bunch of foam in there to help support it. Because unlike the SRC or the WE version, there isn't a spring in there to retain and support the internal units. The internal units are really just held together by these two screws right here. You'll notice those two screws hold the entire unit together. So it's a little bit unrealistic on the inside because theoretically, when you pop open, not theoretically, but in reality, when you pop open the butt stock, you should be able to pull out the bolt and the housing unit and the spring guides and all that stuff. This, you have to use a screw to move them out. Anyway, so let me just put back the original stock right here. Put that back up here. I'm not going to put the screw back in because it's just a little bit harder to show right now. But this is what it looks like. Now, I do want to show though that the both of these stocks are retractable, obviously, right? This one is just a two-position stock, all the way in or all the way out, as you can tell right here. No midway points. Whereas the the WE version right here, again, it's a little bit different because obviously this is the old school stock and doesn't have the rubber pads on it. It's more of the textured one. I like this one better. I'm a huge fan of this, you know. But anyway, this has a 4 position, so all the way in, out. So that's number 2, number 3, or the last one is number 4. It's all the way out like this. So honestly, this is probably the most comfortable position, and I think realistically, no one would really fire in this mode because you're kind of like crunching together. So with MP5s, I feel like they're small enough that you really want the full position, unless you're wearing different gears. Again, I don't play in games, I just kind of collect them, so maybe you folks who are actually playing, that might be more of an important point to keep in mind. Anyway, let's go back to this one right here though. I do want to mention though, both of these stocks are spring-loaded. So let me show you what I mean by that. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? Alright, so right here, right, it's collapsed. So when I pull this lever back, it's going to pop open, right? So watch. It pops open, and then you can just pull it out. Again, normally I would have the pin in there so it doesn't fall out, but just for the video, that's how I would show it. Whereas the WE version, the spring isn't as powerful, so it is spring loaded, but it doesn't pop out as fast. Watch this. So it's, and maybe that wasn't that dramatic, but trust me, it's a lot stronger in this SRC version. Now the reason why that's important though is because when you collapse it, it's a lot easier because the spring's weaker in this one. It's a lot easier. You can just push it in, and that's it. It's a gentle push, and you click it into place. Whereas since the spring tension is a lot higher in this one, when you want to push it into place, you have to really like smack it in there in order to keep it into place. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. And of course, this one looks like this. This is the rubber butt pad, so it does feel pretty comfortable, to be honest with you. I do think it's a good idea. I just don't like the looks. I'm not really about the comfort and more about the looks of this. The other thing is that with these stocks, it's more about the quality of them. So the railings right here, the metal railings that hold the stocks into place right here, the metal that's used on this part is kind of a cheaper metal compared to the WE version. They use a much thicker metal that's of a higher quality. So I do want to point that out. Another thing again is for you folks again who are actually in the field, and I wish I played more like games so I'll know if it's more relevant or not. But sling mounts, again, we have one right here, possibly one right here if anyone knows how to use that or has the right sling for that. I don't really know. And then of course the one right up here. The SRC version, at least if you have the retractable stock version, you got the one up here. And you also got the one on the lower side right here too. So that's kind of cool. So you got both sides right there. In addition to the same ones right here and one up front right here. Now, let me stop right here for a second since this is a good point to point this out, or a good segue to point this out. The SRC version is cheaper by about almost like $100. Maybe even more actually, compared, I can't remember, compared to WE. So what exactly are you getting out of this extra $100? And the answer is, in my opinion, you're getting a few more parts that are made just more well designed with better quality. These are the parts I think you are getting with your money. So A, you're getting a better material, the better metal material being used on the slide stocks right here. So that is supposed to be of a higher quality, or sorry, the SRC is a lower quality. You get a better quality in the WE. You also get a much better quality diopter drums rear sight. So the iron sights on the MP5s are really known. They're really known for being the best out there. But in the airsoft world, of course, this wasn't made too well. As you can see right there, it definitely a lot of wobble. It does click, but it moves very easily. If the slightest bump will move them around. So, and of course, the material itself isn't that quality. If you want to take a look at the WE version, they're using some like steel parts right there, I believe. And again, does not wobble as much, and they click very distinctively into place, and they stay there too because it's there's a lot of resistance to move them, which I mean that in a good way because they don't just fall out into different apertures because you kind of accidentally tap them or something like that. You also get a metal. Look at that. It's kind of grayish, but that's like a solid like aluminum. Or not sorry, solid like steel inner tubing right there, along with a steel or metal. The actual charging handle bolt right here. You'll also notice the same thing on the internals. That's part of the steel bolt right there that's riding, and there's a lot more detail and quality material being made on the internal bolt right there. The other thing you're also getting for is you're getting a much more heavy duty and nicer looking barrel. just the front part. So technically, this is part of the barrel in the real MP5s, but most folks would just call this like the flash suppressor. But this part is made out of aluminum. No, sorry, I keep saying aluminum. It looks like it's steel. Very nicely made right there. Now, unfortunately though, I didn't get the thread suppressor for some reason. They didn't ship with that. But that's another story. And then things are very well built. Both the front sight post, along with this, whatever this cap is called, very tightly built right there. If you compare that, however, to the SRC version, I'm going to switch this out now real quick and put this stock back in. The SRC version, you'll notice that I've already touched on touch base on the how they're made, and this, by the way, I'm just gonna put this in right here, so you can see you kind of have to like squeeze it in right there. Let's see here, kind of, it's hard to do it on camera like this, but basically you kind of line up the grooves. See those two grooves right there? You line them up with the tracks on the MP5s, and then you just slide it in like that. Sorry. And then you pop the pin back in. Oops, wrong side. Well, it doesn't really matter which side, but I just found it more easier to pop it in this side. There you go. Anyway, but with the stock though, I really like this though, and that would have the sling loop right there. Very thin though, so you need like some special sling for that. Anyway, again, we already talked about the rear sight, not as high quality. The internal bolt, again, looks kind of more like an aluminum, cheaper metal, that part right there. So not as high quality as the WE version. The inner tube, cocking tube, you know, you'll notice that it's kind of metalish. It's like a very thin aluminum. It's painted black, so it's definitely not steel. And then this part right here, the charging handle lever right here, it's actually made out of plastic, but it is a good quality of plastic from what I can tell, and it doesn't seem to have a lot of issues when you're cycling. And I've been pretty aggressive with it too, so I kind of rack it back and I smack it down like that. And I'm actually, because this gun's a little bit cheaper, I don't care as much. Well, I do care about it, but not as much as WE. So I kind of smack it around a lot, and it has not broken me yet. This part here looks like it's really quality plastic, but I found out it's actually, as it is, it's plastic. I thought it was metal at first, and it fooled me, but it turns out it's plastic. Whereas the WE is metal. Again, this little thing right here is very loose and wobbly. It's not going to be a big issue, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just not as quality. And then of course this one actually came with the threaded protector right there, so you can unscrew that right here and pop that off. But the material that you can make out of this front part of the barrel right here is pretty cheap, you know, compared to the WE. So that's kind of what you're getting for that extra $100, $150 when you buy the WE version. You're also getting a little bit better magazine qualities, I think. I've been starting to have some issues with the SRC magazines, and with the CO2 version, it's a challenge to really fix them, because I think it's the rubber seals are just not as easy to maintain, I think, as the green gas versions, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But that's what you're getting. One advantage, though, however, with the plastic charging handle is, notice how this one's nice and black right now, right? It's clean. It's doesn't look like it's too worn. Compare that, however, to this higher quality steel one right here, which is painted black. But because you see me cycling it often, you know, I cycle it, the sweat and wear and tear, you'll see that it's taking a toll on the charging handle. You may find that more, you know, realistic. You might like that better. Maybe you don't. But just keep in mind that they'll, you know, one is painted, so there will be wear and tear after use. Whereas the plastic one might be a little bit more resistant to that, since it's not painted on. It's just molded as a black plastic piece. Alrighty. So that's the charging handle.
Okay, folks, so that's probably good enough for part one. I have the remaining part two where I'm talking more about the magazines, how it shoots, and other details that I just don't have time to condense into one long video. I just want to try to keep it a little bit, no more than 20 minutes in these videos. But yeah, I hope you folks like this first part of it, and then we'll finish the last part in a little bit. All right, see you folks next time.